Hello guys and welcome to another video. My name's Mark, I'm an entrepreneur and property investor, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the next steps once you've decided to invest in property. I'm going to be going through exactly how you're going to select that property to buy, how you're going to find it, how you're going to talk to the agents, if you're going through agents, all the different sort of structures that you could use, and really give you the practical steps in a granular detail so that you can make that next move. Before we get into that, if you could possibly give this video a big like, that would really help me out with the algorithm. And if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to my video. I think I'm on 1,000 at this point, so that's been absolutely amazing, and thank you to everybody who subscribed. Also, if you want to have a consultation call with me, have a look in the description. There will be a link in there. You can connect with me and we can have a one-to-one chat. But let's get into the video and let's get on to your next steps on your property investment journey. So guys, welcome to the whiteboard. I thought we'd come in here today to do this because it is quite an intricate bit of information that I'm trying to portray. Now, the first thing when you're trying to buy your next or your first buy-to-let or property is to associate which area you're going to be operating in. Now, we traditionally say that down south, but I don't want to generalise that heavily. I want to say above average prices. We're looking at capital plays, whereas when we're looking at below average prices, we're potentially looking at yield plays. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you look in London, most properties have been extended. Why? Because the value that you generate by putting an extension on is greater than the cost of putting the extension on. Conversely, if you go to Sheffield, for example, where I've got 3 or 4 properties myself, and we manage about 15, virtually none of them are extended because every time you spend £1, you lose money. So it really depends on which area you're going to be operating in to what sort of strategy you're going to be using. And that brings us on to number 2, which is strategy, right? So number 1, I think everywhere in the UK works, okay? It's not like there's some special secret sauce or secret area that you need to go to. You just need to be aware of what area do I want to invest in that meets my requirements. And as soon as you know that, then you can pretty much narrow that down. The next thing you want to do is look at your strategy. Now, there are lots of strategies in terms of property. There is BRRR, which is buy, refurbish, refinance, rent. There is HMOs, service accommodation, there's buy-to-lets. You know, there's any number of strategies and they all work in their own way. For example, you can have a BRRR project that leads to a HMO, that leads to a service accommodation. You can have a buy-to-let that has a multiple exit and could also be used as a service accommodation. But what I think is really important to do is narrow down your area first and then look at which strategies fit into that area. So for example, if I use Sheffield again, because that's somewhere that I've got some properties, we can straight away say that the areas that we've bought in wouldn't work particularly well for service accommodation, but they work really well for HMOs. So we get an excellent return on investment from a HMO standpoint. So we structured those investments as HMO investments. Now, there is multiple exits on that. We could turn it into a single family home. We could attempt to turn it into a service accommodation. But the reality is the fundamentals of those properties aren't quite right for service accommodation. But in terms of the areas that we've bought in, the return on investment's really, really strong. And you need to be able to look at the commercials of all of this. And in this video, I really wanted to go through that with you, but what I've realized is there's so many intricacies, it's really hard. So what I've done is I've uploaded all of my deal templates. They're completely free of charge. You can head to my website, the link is in the description. There are BRR templates to HMO, there's straightforward HMO templates, straightforward service accommodation templates. They're all very user-friendly and it will allow you to analyze your deals and put one against another. Once you've obviously decided on your area and you've worked out which strategy works in that area, and believe me, there is a strategy that works in every area, you then need to find and analyze the deals. And as I said, the link is in the description. You've got my sheets, so you can use those, but you've then also got to find the deals, find these properties that we're going to be buying. So how do we do that? Now, honestly, as somebody who's pretty seasoned at this point, I've been in the middle of about 70 transactions, I bought 13 myself, I can tell you that the number 1 place you get these deals from are agents. Now, Rightmove is the first place that most people will go, and that is rightly so, but agents hold the key. And the way that you get agents to give you the deals before they go on Rightmove is by buying from agents. Now this takes time. This isn't something that you can tap into overnight, because I've got a track record with some of these agents of buying 20 properties a year. It's unlikely you're going to make one phone call and convince them to stop calling me and start calling you. But what you can do is tap into deal sources and people who are in the industry and that they're already getting these phone calls. Conversely, you can just go onto Rightmove and look at the deals once they get on there and start to build relationships with agents. It doesn't take as long as you think. You buy one or two and suddenly people are starting to get to know your name and start to understand what you're doing. The second part of that is obviously analysing the deals. And as I said, the link is in the description for the sheets. Use those. They're really, really powerful. You have to be very, very honest with yourself when you're looking at these deals, because you're comparing investments versus investments. And once you do that, you'll be able to look at the return on investment over a specific period of time. You'll be able to work out whether that meets your criteria. So we found an area, we've decided on a strategy, we've found and analysed a deal that we really like. What's next? Well, we need to offer on that property. And I'm going to teach you some magic words that I always use when I'm talking to agents or people or sellers and just getting an idea of where I can offer. I say, what if, would you? And what I mean by that is, what if I offered around about 130, something like that? Would that be something that would be acceptable to you? And if you do that sort of questioning, then you kind of get, without offending anybody, you start to pick apart where you can offer. So I always try and build relationships with people, and by using this what if, would you kind of questioning, you kind of get underneath where you need to be. Now, you don't want to offend anybody. Don't go around just chucking in 1,000 offers lowball, because that's not going to get you anywhere in this industry. Building relationships is my #1 bit of advice, regardless of any of this. Get well known, get experience, and people will start throwing good things at you. But if you use those sort of words, you're going to really start to get underneath where you can be with your offer. The other thing I would say is, if you're doing a BRRR project, you could say, what would the end value be on this property? Let's say, for example, the end value is 200,000 and the work is 30,000. Well, because I need a margin on that, Mr. Client, Mr. Estate Agent, I could only come in around 140, 130. How do you think your client would feel about that? Or whatever it might be, you know. I'm trying to throw a random example at you, but you can get the picture, right? Like, what if this? How would you? Those sort of questionings, those sort of sentences get you everywhere. So now your offer's been accepted. Let's say, for example, the seller's gone, yeah, absolutely fine, 130,000, that's right up my street. It's time to go through to completion. So at this point, you're getting your solicitor involved, you're getting your mortgage broker involved, and you're really starting to power through the power team we discussed in the last week's Mentoring Monday. I think it's still here. It is. So at this point, you very much want to get your solicitor involved, your broker involved, your accountant involved, your building team, your managing agent. You want to start getting all your ducks in a row so that once you do complete, you can start the work if there's work to be done. Your solicitor will obviously be dealing with the transaction. Your mortgage broker will be understanding, you know, what are we doing in the first instance? Is there a bridge? If there's a bridge, what's the exit strategy? You know, all that sort of stuff. The accountant will be understanding how the business is going to be set up. So you need to get your entire power team really on board once that offer's accepted. I personally would try and get the preliminary conversations done way before that, thus the video last week. So now you're going to go through to complete. Once all of those things are in a row, you're going to pick up the keys, you're going to go onto Facebook, and you're going to take a pretty picture of yourself holding the keys in front of the door, and you're going to smile and be happy. So look, that's my kind of, in under 10 minutes, or close to 10 minutes, how we would go about buying that property, the actual steps. We're going to decide on an area, depending on your circumstances. We're going to work out a strategy that works for that area. Bearing in mind, every area works with a specific strategy. We're going to find and analyse deals using the sheets that I provided, any other sheets that you want to produce. We're then going to offer on those properties after we've had a look around them and made sure we're happy with them. And then we're then going to go through to completion. Once we've completed, it's time to do the renovation work and start getting the exciting bit underway. And I'll tell you a bit more about that next week. Do you know what? Next week, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to break down these a little bit more for you. You know, the BRRR, the HMO, the buy-to-let, the service accommodation, what they all mean, how they can all work for you. Because in a 10-minute video, it's very hard to do that. So I'm gonna do a specific video next week on Mentoring Monday, where we're gonna break down all of these things, what I look for in those projects, depending on where it is in the country, and how I would decide on what I would offer on. So tune in next week when we'll be doing that. If you want to speak to me in the meantime, you can book a call in the description above, or below, or wherever Nick's put it. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've really enjoyed putting it together for you, and I'll see you again on Wednesday.